Hi, I'm Carlos Gallegos.
And I'm Carolina Gallegos.
And this is Songs of Slavery, Messages of Hope.
Kumbaya, Lord, kumbaya. Kumbaya, Lord, kumbaya.
My people were brought to the New World from Africa in the early 1500s to the 1800s in a system called the Triangle Trade. Young Africans like myself were taken from their tribes by force. My people were chained, branded, and inhumanely shipped across the Atlantic to the Americas in the part of the system called the Middle Passage. Many young people were abused and even died along the journey, with their bodies being thrown overboard. Conditions on the ship were hideous, with there being no way of removing human waste from the hull of the ship, and a lack of proper food, water, and clothing. But among these death ships, amidst the crying and the moaning, can be heard the songs and chants of my people's homeland.
I am the songs of the enslaved people. They brought me with them from Africa, and I comforted them later. I became known as spirituals, mostly because the slave owners took pride in teaching their slaves about Christianity, even if their form of Christianity included prejudice, persecution, and abuse. But the music sustained the people, and the songs were a way of sharing the hard condition of being a slave. The songs communicated that each individual was not alone, and that there was hope of salvation. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
I'm the overseer of this plantation. We bought more slaves a while back. The master paid a lot for these new ones. They're young and work hard. They don't even know how to speak English yet, but they'll learn. Others will teach them. One thing's for sure, before long, they'll be a singing and a shouting just like the rest of them. But the thing is, I don't know why they all love to sing so much.
I became a source of great comfort to the people. Singing was all they had to remind them, and that they were not alone, and that there was something better ahead. I got them through the long, hard days of labor and helped sustain them through the brutality of many slave owners. I, the spiritual, communicated togetherness and gave the people hope that God would reward them in heaven. However, by the mid-1800s, I began to convey a different and secret message. The message that perhaps escape from slavery was possible.
My name is Frederick Douglass, a former slave myself, and I'm here to tell you that the white man's happiness cannot be purchased by the black man's misery.
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. My words were used as codes by the slaves. The word heaven communicated life after death, or freedom. Canaan was the north. The drinking gourd referred to the Big Dipper or the North Star. Chariot or train meant movement or running away. Steal away was a message about escape. Wade in the water was an instruction to get to the river so the dogs couldn't pick up your scent. The Ohio River was known as the Jordan. If slaves could cross the Ohio River between Kentucky and the state of Ohio, they can go from slave to free. Jordan River, I'm bound to cross. Jordan River, I'm bound to cross. Jordan River, I'm bound to cross. There's just one more river to cross.
I'm a slave catcher. Slavery has existed just fine in the South for hundreds of years. The people there depend on it to grow their crops such as tobacco and cotton. Now the Underground Railroad is a huge problem. It's not even a real railroad, but a method of helping slaves escape. But that's where we slave catchers come in. We hunt down slaves with dogs and guns, and we take them back to their rightful owners. You know, they are property after all. And if it weren't for those conductors working for the Underground Railroad, our job would be very easy. One conductor in particular, Harriet Tubman, who goes by the name of Moses, a former slave herself, is currently our biggest threat.
Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. I am bound for the promised land. I am bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
My name is Abraham Lincoln, and I just happen to be the 16th President of the United States of America. It's been a hard time for the Union. We've been engaged in great civil war, with much of the conflict having to do with slavery. The South has already seceded from the Union, which started in April of 1861, right after I took office of president. The Confederate States of America were formed to try to preserve their way of life, which included the right to own slaves. But, as I've said before, whenever I hear anyone arguing for slavery, I feel a strong impulse to see it tried on him personally. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves, and under a just God cannot long retain it. A house divided against itself cannot stand.
As the spirit of songs, known as spirituals, my message has lived on. Inequality and slavery have been a great wound for over 400 years. In the 1960s, 100 years after the Civil War, the fight for equality still continued. Spirituals were used by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights activists as they worked for equal rights for all people under law. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We shall live in peace. We shall overcome someday.
One of the last great leaders of the civil rights movement, Dr. John Lewis, passed away in July of 2020, just as racial injustices were being protested in our nation. Dr. Lewis once said this: if you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have to say something. You have to do something. The slavery spirituals were an attempt to communicate injustices and bring hope for survival.
John Newton, a former slave trader turned abolitionist in the 1700s, was moved by his own guilt and remorse into writing a song we all know. This song became a piece of the history of spirituals and tells us that unity and equality will come when each person can humble themselves before God and live in service to others. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Songs of slavery, messages of hope.